Victoria Plectorato.
Line. Pac-Man World 3, on the other hand.
Okay, I got it. What if
Pac-Man, even the main baddie, was a big deal of a character to himself, or you saw nothing of him until the end of the game. This is way better. It reminds me of Yoshi's Island when the Magic Koopa would come in and like over the bosses. That was great. I love that. That's an awesome thing. And then when it comes to the artistic style, I think this looks way better too. Like the nightmare fuel that we had with the original Talkman, that got put in the scrapyard where it belonged. Except the newer and better Talkman. This is so good. I even have to give props to the UI. The game doubles down on Pac's arcadey roots by keeping the score and all of the Pac letters on screen at all times. Everything else about this game has been maintained and polished to a degree, as it was expected to be, but the way the score is always on screen now and numbers are popping up whenever you get pellets and whatnot, it actually adds a bit of an arcadey vibe to this game that was missing before, and helps make this feel like a proper Pac-Man game. I never thought I would actually praise a game for keeping a high score system in 2022, but damn it, they did it. It makes sense here. All that being said, some issues still hold this game back from true greatness. We still have an adventure where nothing really comes off as totally original. And since everything is faithfully recreated, this means that basically every level requires a little bit of backtracking, since you often gotta use this fruit that you just got for a locked door that's a few screens back. That is a very common trope with this game, but even still, it's fine. Namco took their classic average platformer, and now it's an above average platformer. The child in me who grew up with the original is pleased. Even if they removed the scream at the start, that does take away a few points, I'm not gonna lie. And hey, this whole Pac-Man world idea is just cool for giving a little bit of extra lore to Pac-Man himself for having a full-on family now. And hey, Miss Pac-Man was a big deal of a character too, right? You know, no one really cares about the kids, but Miss Pac-Man, oh, she's someone special. Well, I know that nowadays Namco doesn't want you to know about this, but we got a bit of a secret game that came out next after the original PS1 game. In between the releases of Pac-Man Worlds 1 and 2, we got Miss Pac-Man Maze Madness. Do you remember how in the original world we had all those maze sections hidden behind doors? Well, let's make an entire game around that. On a quest to save Professor Pac from the mirror that he's been sucked into, you go across the 4 wonders of Pac-Land to gather special gems and take down, an evil witch? And her giant evil green Pac-Man. Alright. Like World before it, it is a super straightforward game. It is just very mechanically sound. You got levels of unique maze layouts strung together by a little bit of puzzle solving and a little bit of enemy dodging, with some new elements thrown in from time to time, like top-down racing. They were really on that car racing idea back then, weren't they? This is really one of those games that kinda shows its entire hand early. While we do see some slightly new mechanics and puzzle opportunities as we progress, and the theming does definitely get a bit more original than Pac-Man had, like we have Egypt, and then China with these enemy Chinese dragons, that's super cool. This is still a what you see is what you get kind of deal. Saved by it still being a relatively unique idea, this is certainly one of the furthest ways the core maze gameplay has ever gone in terms of making an entire adventure out of it. And also, the soundtrack. The soundtrack to this game is incredible and very important to the game's overall enjoyment. Go and listen to Cleopatra, that song is amazing. As far as a potential remake goes, I kinda think this is one of those games that's gonna be stuck in the past. I don't know, man, Pac-Mom's Maze Madness just doesn't really roll off the tongue as much. Even if she has a super cool hat, I'm sorry, I'm calling it like I see it.
I deeply apologize to all of you Pac-Mom fans out there. I hope both of you can forgive me really soon.
And then we got Pac-Man World 2, now this. Oh, this is where it's at. Let's just embrace this right out of the gate. The originality is, once again, not really this game's strong suit. We have a grassland, an ice land, a lava land, whatever. The game controls like a dream, and that is much more important. While the original had this sort of side-scrolling 3D thing going on, World 2 goes for full-on 3D and polishes up all of the mechanics to boot. Rolling around is a lot more fun, some of the pack chain segments are a lot more visually interesting, and the bouncing, man, the bouncing in this game is so much more satisfying. And the developers knew this too, it's obvious. Stages like Bedoing Woods, where you're bouncing up a ton of super tall trees, it is great platforming stuff. And then the bosses, while they also sacrifice originality, just using the ghosts with these robot suits this time around, I mean, hey, it kinda stinks, but it adds some more Pac-Man flavor to this adventure, and that's fine by me. Even the main baddie, Spooky the Ghost, he's just an advanced ghost. It works perfectly. This game is just a constant burst of platforming goodness from start to the water world, where you do multiple obnoxious auto-scrolling water levels back to back to back. Dear God, why did they save all of these for just one world? This part sucks. Namco should go to jail. And did you like look back at the opening cutscene and see the pack dog? Dude, like, it was an actual dog before. What happened? This is a tiny person walking on all fours. I do not like it. No sir, I do not. And Miss Pac-Man's nowhere to be seen in this adventure. I'm not really sure why that's the case. Maybe they were having a marriage dispute. I don't know. Maybe they could figure that out in the remake. Who's to say? As platformers started to get more complicated during this generation, bleeding together these different genres in an attempt to age up with the older audience, it's nice to have a relatively standard but very polished platformer thrown into the mix. And if World 2 does eventually get a repack of its own by the time you're watching this, then hey, there are definitely some perks to this good timeline. Pac-Man World 3, on the other hand.
Okay, I got it. What if Pac-Man learned how to kick ass in hell?
Grand Theft Auto 3, Jak 2, Ratchet Deadlocked. If you want to be successful now, Pac-Man, you gotta get edgier. That's the only option. Oh man, oh baby, listen to that dope title screen music. Hope that sound of wind screen music. The old
S. Okay, I got it.
Theft Auto 3, Jack 2, Ratchet Deadlocked. If you want to be successful now, Pac-Man, you gotta get a title screen music up for a great first, but honestly, it's not that bad. Like, I would clearly rather he doesn't talk at all, but maybe this well-done animation is fooling me here. I actually really like the voices in this game. But then you get into the game itself and God, World 3 is so weird. Pac-Man's in a post-apocalyptic world now. Why is everything so dark and murky? The soundtrack is all mellow and ambient instead of upbeat and catchy. It's just weird. And there's a combat system? Oh God, Irwin? This is the villain? We jumped from a Robo Pac-Man to a big spooky ghost to a destroy all humans alien looking reject. Man, those forehead wrinkles. Should have invested in some lotion. That's probably why he's so mad. Along the way, Orson is helping you out too. In an interesting bit of continuity, that is the ghost who was controlling Toc-Man in the original Pac-Man world, and now he's deciding to like be good. It's a weird piece of continuity that I appreciate. It's strange. Everything about this game is strange. But it's not like the game is bad. Honestly, this continues the trend of the game playing fine with some solid platforming mechanics, but it's really hard to take this so seriously when the game is taking itself so seriously. This is Pac-Man. Why am I traveling through hell like it's Doom? If you want some of that patented wackiness that you would come to expect for a platformer, well, the game does have these maze sections, but man, we got this really repetitive, kooky, over-the-top music and these techie visuals because you're jumping into arcade machines and that's how it's done this time around. They don't really spice things up the way that they thought they might. The maze sections in the previous games were optional, in here, they're mandatory, and by doing that, on top of the weirdness, it's not a good fit. You got sections where you get to play as some of the ghosts. Pac-Man gets to be sassy with this new demon-looking wannabe threat. He's scary looking too. There are multiple ways to take down enemies now because you have your fist combos as well as these power-ups that pop up over time. I'll give him credit, there was some genuine effort put into this, but it is ultimately just too much of a monotonous and soulless adventure to really sit through the entire thing in one piece, unless you're a dedicated Pac nut like I am. Which is a shame, because this attempt to actually give Pac a voice and a personality, I do think that part worked out really well. Certainly better than... But hey, if Pac-Man waka-wakaing through the underworld sounds exciting to you, then give it a shot. You never know, you might like it. You know, this is around the same time that like Ty the Tasmanian Tiger made a jump in the third game to a really dark world. Maybe this was like just a literal dark time for platformers in the mid-2000s. It made sense, it's just weird to look back at.
I'm detecting a rise in energy in your sector, Pac-Man.
Details of my sector's energy should be between me and Miss Pac. Thank you very much.
Didn't need that innuendo about Pac-Man's power pellets, thank you.
A kart race.
Of my sector's energy should be between me and Miss Pac. Thank you very much. Details of my sector's energy should be between me and Miss Pac.
A kart racer now though. Okay, so that's the only way you really know your platformer series is actually worth a damn. Pac-Man World Rally. I mean, yeah, it's a Mario Kart clone, but that's never a bad thing. If the first two Pac-Man World games are very standard platformers, then this, yeah, it follows the trend. It is a very standard kart racer, with all of the item types and craziness that you've come to expect. The only main gimmick with this one is that there are Pac pellets scattered throughout the stages, kinda similar to Mario Kart's coins, but once you collect enough, you can go into Power Pellet Goblin mode and chomp away on anybody that you come across. Pretty neat. And character-wise, oh, they really nailed this roster too. Of course, we got some of the members of the Pac fam, that's to be expected. We got some ghosts. Clyde has a new hat. I really like his style. Very nice dude. And even all of the villains from the World trilogy. That continuity, really nice. It makes the whole World thing seem like it was not for nothing. We even get Pac Satan. Hell yeah, dude. Has nothing to do with the rest of the trilogy. They just decided, hey, we got a car racer coming up. Let's make a Pac Satan, I guess. And then you got some other Namco characters as unlockables, like the enemies from Dig Dug, the Prince from Katamari, and the PSP version also exclusively has Mr. Driller and Mappy. That's pretty cool, a 3D model of Mappy, for some reason only in the PSP game. This is Really just weird choices left and right with this franchise. And then when you get to the tracks, yeah, a lot of them continue the trend of being fairly generic, but hey, some things certainly stand out more than others as potential callbacks, like a pirate track, which, I don't know, could be a reference to World 1, maybe? None of the tracks really super stand out as a throwback. It's mostly the final Classic Cup where the coolest stuff is, like a space stage with a Galaga influence, a full-blown Katamari course, that's awesome, and a traditional Pac maze. Makes total sense. World Rally has a maze stage, Smash Ultimate does not. The world is cruel and unjust. There are so many Mario Kart clones out there. It's kind of hard to stand out from the pack in terms of gameplay, but in terms of aesthetics, yeah, I mean, Pac-Man doesn't really do anything super specific to stand out, but it's a fun enough time, and a decent way to wrap up the series in terms of its original games. Pac would later show up with Mario in the arcade kart games, and that's kinda cool too. Those games got some solid fan service, and it's stuff like that that makes me want to see more of these crossovers in later Mario Kart games, but that's an entirely different topic. As it stands, the World Trilogy, Miss Pac-Man Maze Madness, World Rally, pretty solid stuff all around. And then they tried to revive the series on the Game Boy Advance, and Jesus Christ, why? You see, alongside their console releases, we got World 3 and World Rally on PSP, and World 3 even showed up on DS, and they are worse than the console versions, that's to be expected, but they're functional enough given what those systems were capable of. The fact that we have World 3 on DS and it actually kinda works is a technical marvel, but there's no reason to actually play it. It's the worst version of an already below average game. But now, why in the mid-2000s we got World 1, Maze Madness, and World 2 for Game Boy Advance? This is one of the most confusing sets of releases I've ever seen. The games weren't new enough to be the next best thing to purchase, nor old enough to have a growing sense of nostalgia yet. Was anybody asking for these? The DS was about to be the hot holiday item for those few years. Pac and Miss Pac were sent out to die. So, okay, the first two, World 1 and Maze Madness, are definitely iterations of the console games. Very clearly, we have level designs being pulled onto the smaller screen. And mechanically, they're pretty sound, I guess. The music has been ported in an incredibly crusty way. Oh god, maybe it sounds better on official speakers, but this is gross. And outside of some elements that are removed, like most of the boss fights, they did kind of accomplish what they set out to do. They look absolutely cursed, and when blown up on a big screen like this, yeah, they look terrible. But if they were set out to, for some reason, port World 1 and Maze Madness to the Game Boy Advance, they did it. I just don't know why. Nothing about this seems to make these versions of these games appealing outside of the sheer novelty of it. Like at the time, I remember thinking, oh, Maze Madness on Game Boy Advance, that's sweet. And then I got into level 1, and Cleopatra is not the song that plays there. It's not in the game at all. So, okay, they removed all the good music from the game that I wanted to play. Easy 0 out of 10 score as a result. Sorry. When it came to World 2, which released a while later, you can tell that they at least tried to take some creative liberties with the original adventure. Like, I think the new sprites are really nice, so I'm glad there's some effort there instead of just shrinking down the images of the original PS1 sprites in MS Paint. The music has, once again, been butchered though. Like, these games on consoles had great soundtracks, but then they ported the more mediocre stuff exclusively and placed them in the levels that they didn't initially belong to. I don't get it. I mean, I guess considering it's not like the GBA had much in terms of 3D platformers, I guess this is one of the ones to check out if you're an insane person. All things considered, yeah, these ports are really dumb. Interesting little asterisks on the side of the main console games, but hey, as the GBA era came to a close, a shocking amount of console platformers also got mediocre GBA versions just to, I don't know, prank the parents of small children who ask for these games. Damn it, Mom, no, I didn't want Dr. Muto on Game Boy Advance. The holidays are ruined once again. Pac-Man World, if it wasn't obvious enough, is the most interesting side series of this entire franchise. But granted, this is coming from someone who has a very strong bias towards mid-2000 platformers, but I feel like if you're watching this, you probably do too. We share a common bond there. Hope I'm not too forward. But now, this is likely to start the talk of the future of the franchise with the ghostly adventure stuff. And,
Shirts and pins are still available at theyeti.com. or modernize Pac-Man over the years, I think most people would agree that Pac-Man World was probably the best stab they ever took at it. It was this super solid trilogy of 3D platformers on PS1 and 2. They aimed to take all of the classic mechanisms and aesthetics that made Pac-Man iconic and recontextualize them into a platformer, while adding fresh elements that would make it unique. And they did a pretty solid job. Pac-Man's rolly and bouncy nature made the game stand out from the crowd quite a bit, though they're not all without their flaws. Definitely not on par with something like Crash or Spyro or Mario and stuff, but despite their shortcomings, I do still really love these games. Yeah, even Pac-Man World 3. I mean, like, sure, the combat is dull enough to put me to sleep, but the exploration's fun as heck, and the writing actually did get the occasional chuckle out of me.
I don't want to be doomed. I just want to go home.
The second game was easily the best one, though. Pretty much took everything from one and made it bigger and better. Some difficulty spikes here and there, yeah, but it's still overall a pretty great time. And the first game's pretty fun too, although it can be pretty rough at times. I mean, PS1, right? It's not bad for their first go at it, yet there were a number of issues. The projectile attack was kind of weird and hard to use. There was clunky character physics that made some levels a nightmare to get through without flying off the stage, and man, it had this one boss fight that was so hellishly broken. I assure you, most people never saw the second half of the game. So of course, when I saw that they were doing a ground-up remake for this game, well, the first thing I thought about was how they could finally fix all of those stupid little problems. I tell you though, I was totally blindsided by the announcement for this thing. It's just that, like, I don't know, Pac-Man World isn't really what comes to mind when I think of remakes. Like it's Pac-Man World. It's not exactly the kind of game you're gonna fantasize about playing with new, shiny HD graphics and in the same way that you would with all of the iconic and whimsical worlds that come from games like Spyro or Shadow of the Colossus. Though I guess with the success of other platformer remakes, it was bound to happen eventually. I mean, come on, it's Pac-Man. You know how much they love re-releasing this kind of stuff. And it's not like Pac-Man World was a small time spin-off or anything. I mean, this thing sold well over 1 million freaking copies, and Pac-Man World 2 sold even more. Now that I say that out loud, actually, it's a bit strange that they're only remaking the first game, but oh well, I'll still take it. I mean, it is the one that needs it the most after all. Not so much because I think like the old PS1 graphics are outdated and bad or anything, but more so because this game's got a lot of problems. There's definitely some fixing up I'd like to see done to this thing. With how inconsistent remakes can be, though, I am pretty freaking curious about this thing. Like, how faithful is it? What did they change? Did they add anything cool? Did they fix everything and make it better than ever? Or does it just suck a gorilla's wombo ass? I just gotta know. So I figured, like, let's give this repack a nice thorough dive. Let's see what it's all really about. And yeah, I know I already did a video about the old version a number of years back, but I figured I'd go over it all from scratch once more, and we'll make comparisons to the original game along the way. Now, bro. Okay, I guess Namco contracted this one out to, oh, it's a long-running Japanese team. Funny, I've never heard of them. They've done some iconic stuff. GBA versions of Klonoa, that's pretty sweet. Now, what I find so curious about this choice in developer is that the original was created by an American team, Namco Home Tech. Usually you see American remakes of Japanese games, so it's kind of interesting seeing the opposite happen for once. So, right out of the gate, we're treated to a very colorful intro movie. Everybody's planning Pac-Man's birthday, and the ghosts arrive, plotting to kidnap Pac-Man. Though they're too dumb to figure out that this group of 5 people isn't Pac-Man, so they'd kidnap all of them instead. The ghosts will then grab each character in a variety of goofy ways, each time using a different trick or contraption. It's pretty freaking silly. You just gotta love it. Pac-Man then shows up to the shittiest birthday of all time as a pamphlet for an evil fake Pac. Goes up to the shittiest birthday of all time as a pamphlet for an evil fake Pac-Man's birthday drops from an escaping balloon. There's an imposter out there trying to steal our birthday. Well, we gotta put a stop to that. I still really love this plot. It's just so befittingly goofy of Pac-Man, but it is really different from the original. I mean, like, this is the exact same setup. The ghosts kidnap Pac-Man's friends and family in a variety of goofy and silly ways. However, the tone and execution here are totally different. You did not see these ghosts in the original game. We had no idea who was taking everybody. It was still comical, yeah, but it was played to a more sinister who was taking everybody. It was still comical, yeah, but it was played to a more sinister and mysterious previous tune. We didn't get to find out until after the title screen that it's this imposter named Talkman who's getting the ghost to do all of his evil bidding. I don't think it's better or worse than the original at all. It kind of hits the same mark. It's just really fascinating seeing how differently they executed the exact same intro. However, the thing that really stuck out to me the most, and I'm sure it stuck out to you too, the total removal of Miss Pac-Man. Who the hell is this Pac-Mom character? Who are you, and what did you do with the character that's supposed to be here? And it's not even just this game either. I bought the Pac-Man Museum Plus collection back when that came out, and I was befuddled. Playing all of these games again, games that I'm more than familiar with and have played many times before, yet something is weirdly different here. What the hell is happening? So I actually decided to look into this, and holy hell, I found a wild rabbit hole. Really good video about it right here, but basically what happened is, back in the day, the Miss Pac-Man game was not made by Namco. It was made by some random dude that was kind of making his own ROM hacks versions of games, just trying to make them harder, and thus Miss Pac-Man was born. So there was a legal agreement back then between him and Namco. Namco wanted to keep making the software and arcade machines as long as, you know, this guy got royalties for doing it, so all is cool. Years go by, the royalties dry up, the guy doesn't think twice about it because it's an old arcade game, but in the early 2000s he realizes, oh my god, Namco breached our agreement when they ported the software to newer arcade cabinets they built for like a 20th anniversary version or something. So basically, this guy's owed money. And I guess after years and years of legal headaches throughout the 2000s, he gets sick of this whole thing and he's just like, you know what, I'm just gonna sell the rights to Miss Pac-Man. I'm done with this. The company he sold it to was the shit-eating goblin company called AtGames. You might know them for their terrible plug-and-plays. Now that they own the character, they've been right up Namco's ass about it, just trying to get something for it. So in brutal retaliation, Namco's just like, you know what, screw you, we're gonna delete Miss Pac-Man. You think we can't do that? You think we can't just delete? We're gonna do it. So that's why they've been editing her out of 20 trying to plus-year-old games. All these re-releases that they get rid of her from, they're doing it because they were trying to remove the cultural idea that is Miss Pac-Man from the Pac-Man brand. And I guarantee you, that is one of the biggest reasons this remake even exists. Pretty wild, huh? Just a corporate swinging the hammer. I mean, to the person making this decision, it's just a check mark on a piece of paper, right? You pay another little team and they do all the work for you. Could you imagine that like a Mario Galaxy remake comes out one day and they just pretend Luigi never existed? Like, Luigi? What are you talking about? It's Mario's orange brother, Chris. Don't you remember Chris? Like, no, I don't. What are you talking about? Well, title screen's totally different, the music's exactly the same, but we got something a little bit more interesting than just a black background, a little wide shot of the, but we got something a little bit more interesting than just a black background, a little wide shot of the beach. It's better, I guess, but it's still not all that exciting. I wish they had something more interesting than just the first map you see loaded in. They did the same thing with the box art. Am I the only one that thinks it doesn't look all that great? I mean, like, it's fine, but I don't know. The composition's kind of weird. Pac-Man's pose is a little bit dull, and the colors are weird and faded. A nitpick, yeah, but I don't know. I think this could look a lot better. Like, come on, it's Pac-Man. You're Namco. Give it the treatment, man. Well, let's start a new game. So we get another cutscene of Talkman walking around complaining about the party when a ghost arrives with news of Pac-Man arriving on Ghost Island. Oh no, the ghosts are screwed. Once more, it's the exact same scene from the original, but man, is the execution ever different as well. Firstly, the spoken dialogue was replaced with gibberish and subtitles.
Pac-Man's here on Ghost Island!
And Talkman's design, wow, this is so much different. He's so much sleeker. It's definitely a cleaner design. No longer sports the gross asymmetrical eyebrows, which I really do miss. He looks more like a supervillain robot dude than he does a hideous hunk of junk thrown together by a disgruntled moron. He's even got a jetpack now, whoa. And it also feels like they wanted to make him more involved in the ongoing plot. Before every boss fight, he'll show up and be like, ha, and then go away, and then the fight ensues. Again, I don't think it's better or worse than the original, but it is a very different interpretation of the character. And boom, there we are, plopped right into Buccaneer Beach, the first level, and wow, this is actually pretty sweet looking. The colors really pop, man, wow. So for the uninitiated, Pac-Man World, it's a pretty simple platformer. It's not like a full open 3D collectathon like Banjo or Spyro. It's more like a Crash game, or maybe Mario 3D World's a better example. Very linear levels with a clear start and end. It's practically a side-scroller, except with about like a meter of depth that you can use to wiggle around the obstacles. And boy, does it all feel good. The controls feel tighter, the jumping feels a lot more accurate, ledge grab's a lot more responsive, so stuff like this doesn't have it anymore. The character physics here have been improved a lot over the original. Plus stuff like feel tighter, the jumping feels a lot more accurate, ledge grab's a lot more responsive, so stuff like this doesn't have it anymore. The character physics here have been improved a lot over the original. Platforms that used to clunkily roll you off have been adjusted so they don't randomly take control away from you if you happen to hit it wrong. Oh my god, and those spinning platforms that were ridiculously hard to get a handle on, they don't affect your momentum so aggressively this time around. Just a lot of little tweaks like that. It all feels very good. I always really loved the moveset here. Pac-Man's main move is this bounce that you can use to gain height, like bouncing on up to higher areas, or you can use it to stomp on enemies, bouncing right down on top of them. You can also use it to break open those little chests, you can use it to bop those buttons, all that good stuff. It's just a really good move that lets you interact with the environment in a number of different satisfying ways. I also love how it'll speed up a little bit if you do enough of them in a row. If you get this flow going, you can really just plow through those staircases and certain platforms. It's just all around a fantastic move. As for the other actions, Pac-Man also has this rev where he'll run on the spot and take off with a burst of speed. This can be used to slam into enemies or launch yourself off of ramps or up steep slopes, or you could use it to charge up those rev pads, activating some sort of mechanism or perhaps making the platform you're standing on move, or you could just use it for plain old going faster. I kind of wish it had a little bit more of a physicsy feel to it though, if you know what I mean. Like, the speed you get from this thing does not carry into your jump whatsoever. It's as if it all disappears the moment you leave the ground. Now, using this as an attack in the original game was always a terrible idea. The recoil from it was so strong that it sent you flying off the stage half the time. But here, I didn't have that problem at all. The rev ended up being just as viable for taking out enemies as the bounces. I was using it so much more for that in this version, and it ended up being a rather fun way to take out enemies. Now that's a solid change right there. The last way you can fight enemies is by throwing these pack dots. Yeah, all those dots you've been picking up. Here, there's actually a solid use for them. Tapping the shoulder button will have Pac-Man toss one of these out. It's really good for enemies that are hard to attack without getting hit with the rev or that bounce, like these little robot guys and their torch heads that flip up and down. You can even charge it up and do an exploding dot that has way more range. Now, this is something that was actually really weird and awkward in the original. For some reason back then, Pac-Man would strictly spike it downwards towards his feet. I don't know why he did that. Like, the only way you could ever hit anything with it is if you jump directly in front of the enemy at like the precise angle first. I really don't know what they were thinking back then, because this is so much better. When you're collecting those dots, you'll often run into a couple of ghosts huddling around them. If you can find a power pellet, Pac-Man will then transform into his super munchy form, and then you'll be able to gobble them up, wrecking through anything in your path too. So yeah, this is also super different. In the original game, the power pellet did not change anything physically about Pac-Man whatsoever. The only thing it did was made the ghosts turn blue, and then you could go get them. But here, like, gobble them up, wrecking through pellet, Pac-Man will then transform into his super munchy form, and then you'll be able to gobble them up, wrecking through anything in your path too. So yeah, this is also super different. In the original game, the power pellet did not change anything physically about Pac-Man whatsoever. The only thing it did was made the ghosts turn blue, and then you could go get them. But here, this feels like a mother frickin' power-up, you know what I mean? Like, oh my god, it's just so much more satisfying to do it this way. Did I just say mother frickin'? Jeez. The other power-ups also return, but those ones are more close to their PS1 counterparts, like the Super Bounce. This will knock out all the enemies around you when you use it. It's a kind of fun thing the game throws at you every now and then. Though the real star of the power-up show here is easily the Chrome Ball. This is the most fun thing you get here. I always thought this was really funny that it's literally just a blatant copy of Metal Mario from Mario 64, like both visually and functionally. But, you know, like I said before, if they're gonna copy ideas, they may as well do it from the best, right? And yeah, this is actually a really fun power-up in this game. I love the way it increases your weight. It has a feel that Mario never really got. Jumping around feels so much faster and snappier when you got it. Sometimes a magnet will grab you. That's a really fun idea for an obstacle. And sinking down through water is really satisfying because now you get to break all those boxes that you previously could only swim by. You'll find a variety of fruit in these boxes. So instead of being something that just helps you rack up points like they were in the original arcade games, the fruit now operate as a series of keys that you can use to open the corresponding fruit door. Many of these are required to find your way through the level, but the more tucked away ones will open optional gates that usually hide one of the letters of Pac-Man. If you manage to find all 6 letters, you'll then find the secret tape. No, I'm joking, you'll get to play a bonus stage at the end of the level. These are pretty straight. Find the secret tape. The letters of Pac-Man. If you manage to find all 6 letters, you'll then find the secret tape. No, I'm joking, you'll get to play a bonus stage at the end of the level. These are pretty straightforward. It's just a variety of small, open-ish areas that you gotta collect as much fruit in as you can before the time limit's up. The better you do, the more lives you'll get. Oh, wow. Oh my god. Okay, well, I guess this version is way more forgiving with the extra lives. Not that the original version is unforgiving or anything. I feel like I always had enough to get through the stages rather comfortably, even while making a decent amount of mistakes. But now they give you so freaking many that you're not even gonna know what to do with them all. They mostly come from this big machine here. Yeah, the one that you throw all your dots and fruit into at the end of each level for bonus points. This thing is now also a slot machine. For every token you found in that level, you'll get another spin at it. The thing is, though, it's always the exact same sequence. So with a little bit of patience and practice, really easy to get 3 Galaxians in a row. Spend a little bit of time here and you'll be in the 100 Lives Club in no time. Except you'll be doing it for the trophy, not because it affects the gameplay at all. I know lives are a classic component of games like this, but I really don't think it's serving much of an actual mechanical purpose here. Still though, collecting everything in every stage is a ton of fun. The levels may be linear, but there is tons to find. You'll be busting open every box, opening every locked door, finding all the secret rooms. Going through the level with a fine-tooth comb, actually pretty dang gratifying. And you'll know when you missed a letter as well, giving you this general ballpark area to look in. I really love this a lot because it's a really helpful way to steer you in the right direction, but without just like giving it away. One of my favorite levels for this is down the tubes in the factory world. It's this big underwater maze made of pipes where you gotta look for all the fruits and get to the right doors, but it's not like overwhelmingly big. I really appreciate having at least one level that's kind of maze-like because, you know, that is what Pac-Man was all about after all. And of course, alongside the fruit, there's also the hidden Galaxian. If you find this guy, you'll then get access to a bonus maze. These are okay. I mean, like, it is just classic Pac-Man, but some of the obstacles in the later ones are kind of annoying. It's just stuff that turns on and off in timed intervals, so it's like, if you're unlucky and you're just getting away from a ghost, oh no, you just have to wait for it to go away, and, you know, in a game where you gotta keep moving, it's more annoying than it is challenging. Though they did add an option to zoom the camera out, finally. Oh my god, the camera used to be strictly this close. You couldn't see anything. You can't tell where the ghosts are gonna be going if you couldn't see them, right? At the very least, that is no longer a problem. So, of course, in classic Pac-Man fashion, the final item you can grab is the key. If you want to save the Pac person in that world, you'll first have to find this. Sometimes the key will be in a different level in that world, which sounds annoying, but they do have the decency to let you know which one it is. The cages, on the other hand, those will always just be in plain sight. Now, this is something that's also pretty different. In the original game, you had to rescue everybody before it let you play the final level and finish the game, but here, it's optional. If you want, you can do a playthrough where Pac-Man has no interest in saving his family and just wants to go kill some ghosts. Doesn't matter, you're gonna see the credits either way. I'll get into the reason for this later in the video. It's actually pretty neat. Okay, so I'm pretty happy so far with this remake. The visuals are crisp, yet they preserve the original cartoony simplicity. Pac-Man remains as expressive as ever. He may not look like he wants a hug whenever he jumps anymore, but the infectious joy of his goofy expressions is something you can once again expect, complete with all of the silly idle animations as well. And the controls are really great. Those have definitely seen a big improvement. Though there is a pretty bad hiccup in the moment-to-moment platforming that was not present in the original, and that hiccup is Pac-Man's shadow. In the original game on PlayStation, Pac-Man's shadow was just a simple circle that was always directly beneath him. No matter what the context or the lighting or how that level looked, that shadow was always in the exact same spot. We need that consistency so we can consistently tell where we're going to land if we let them drop. Rayman 2 even says this out loud. Sometimes if you want to learn game design, games make it easy. There is a mechanical reason platforming characters have this kind of unrealistically casted shadow. I mean, hell, some games even take it a step further and make it stand out better with bright colors. It's not about trying to figure out how, you know, the shadow would be realistically casted as much as it's about giving the player the visual feedback they need to properly engage with the level. The remake just isn't nearly as good about this as the original was. Most of the time the shadows kind of faint or hard to make out, which doesn't really do you any favors, but more so than that, there's one level that fumbles this entirely. Look at this, the shadow's right on the coffin, and I go right through. Why did they cast it on an angle in this level? That shadow's placement was important. I'm suddenly fumbling all these stupidly simple jumps that I never had a problem with in the old version. Not that it really matters though, because you're gonna have 100 lives to plow through before it's a problem. Maybe that's why they made the lives so easy to get. Nah, probably not, because there's a totally different thing here that seems to be trying to address this new problem? Well, kind of. There's a brand new move in this game that was not in the original that allows Pac-Man to extend his airtime. Press and hold the square button after you jump and Pac-Man will hang in the air a little bit longer with a little flutter kick, making it really easy to line up the finer jumps. I am really split on whether or not I like this change because, well, I don't know, it kind of seems like a band-aid on a greater wound, if you know what I mean. Like, instead of tweaking all of the level design and adjusting the platform size and distance and having the proper shadow to make everything feel good, they'd just instead rather give you a super move that makes every single jump really easy. Though, on the other hand, I guess you could argue that you could just not use it, and yes, I know that is not ever normally a real argument. If there's something dangling in front of you that is going to make the experience more comfortable, it's just human nature to fall back on it eventually. It's like trying to convince yourself not to use save states. Like, even if you do think they are going to impede the experience and make it worse, eventually you're just gonna roll your eyes and use it anyway, right? But I wouldn't really argue that here because this move feels really sluggish. It slows you right down. But that bounce, ooh, it is satisfying to go fast with that bounce. This move kind of feels like the opposite of that, so just naturally, I wasn't really relying on it at all. If anything, I was just using it to like get a little bit of extra distance out of a jump rather than like correcting my mistakes. So yeah, I kind of got some wobbly feelings about this move. I'm not really sure if I like it or not. The hub world's something that's a little different. It's a lot cleaner and shinier, sure, but what really matters here is how much they rearranged all of it. You used to make progress in one linear direction. If you wanted to walk back to an older world, you had to walk past every single other one on the way there. Kinda took forever sometimes, but now it's all set up like this. They got these split pathways to tie it all together from the middle. It also makes the final area feel a lot more significant, being this central piece of the island instead of being the thing on the far right. They even added a warp, so you can really easily get back to any world at any time. And as far as the worlds go, we start with a pirate theme before moving through an ancient ruins, an outer space level, a goofy carnival full of clowns, an industrial factory, and then we finally land in the spooky ghost world. I remember being a little bit confused as to why they choose a horror theme as the final level. Like, it's Pac-Man. What are we doing with ghosts and goblins and shit? But then it's like, oh wait, the bad guys are ghosts. No, yeah, no, that does make sense. Of course. I always love that. Miss Pac-Man on N64 did the same thing. Oh, wait, sorry, I can't talk about Miss Pac-Man. I'm trying to forget that happened. Just like the original, you'll usually have Sorry, I can't talk. I always love that. Miss Pac-Man on N64 did the same thing. Oh, wait, sorry, I can't talk about Miss Pac-Man. I'm trying to forget that happened. Just like the original, you'll usually have access to 2 of these worlds at a time, giving you a tiny bit of freedom as to the order that you tackle the levels in. It's not a whole lot, but it was neat, so I'm glad they kept it. One of my favorite details about the original game was how the ghosts would always dress differently in every level. Construction hats in the factory, clown costumes for the carnival. It was a really cute touch. So I was pretty happy to see that they had that back in this one too. The ghost costumes are back in full force and they are more adorable than ever before. Probably the only thing here that is exactly the same as before is the soundtrack. It is completely untouched. They just use the original songs from the original version, which is totally fine. It's a really good soundtrack, but man, does it sound fuzzy sometimes. It's like they're using the exact same files that they just ripped off the PS1 disc. It's not always an issue, but when it is, boy, is it noticeable. Man, listening to all of this music again, I really did not give enough credit to the soundtrack in my old video. It's actually really clever and well put together. I find a lot of Pac-Man remixes tend to kind of rely on just repeating the very small amount of music that was actually present in the original Pac-Man. You see what I mean, right? But the soundtrack for this game instead uses bits and pieces of the original and sprinkles it throughout a brand new score. They'll take the sequence of notes and flesh it out into something different, or maybe they'll grab a bass line or a basic chord progression and explore it in a totally different way for each and every level. And that becomes... It does such a good job at making every song sound like it's from Pac-Man, but like without just repeating the same song that we already know. Yeah, I really didn't give that enough credit in my old video, and considering that they didn't even credit the poor guy in this remake despite reusing the same compositions, the same MP3 files by the sounds of it, I feel like somebody's got us, so thank you, Todd Dennis. The other guy here I think was just a sound effect, so I'm pretty sure it was Todd here. Moby Games and various other places online credit Tommy Tallarico. He shouldn't get the credit just because it was recorded at his studio. What's with this guy not being able to get the credit he deserves? Come on. Okay, now the boss fights. These have probably seen the most changes of all. My brain went straight to the Anubis Rex fight when I first saw the trailer, and I am pleased to say they totally fixed it. They did it. Wow, like the jumping feels better. The rev always snaps you to the rev pad properly so you don't fly off the stage just because you were 1 pixel off. They didn't nerf it either, like they still launch a shit ton of stuff at you, so it's still rather challenging. It took me a couple of tries even, but now when I died, oh yeah, it actually felt like it was totally my fault. I can't believe it, they did it, they fixed Anubis Rex, they fixed it! Though Pac-Man doesn't do the funny dance anymore when you escape the guy. I mean, he doesn't even do it when you beat a level anymore, it's completely gone. What the hell? Come on, Namco, bring back the funny dance. Put it back in the game! The first boss is really about the same. Hit the switches to launch the cannibals back at the pirate ship. Self-explanatory as hell and not very hard at all. The Galaxian fight has some changes. I'm kind of split on some of them. I mean, on one hand, you don't have to mash the button to fire anymore. You just hold it. Thank God, no broken thumbs this time. That was a nightmare. And I love the HD treatment they gave the boss. He looks so freaking cool. On the other hand, though, it feels a little bit too easy this time. Like, I really don't think they had to nerf him this much, especially since Anubis Rex fixed the fight while maintaining the challenge, though I guess it is a pretty dang cool sequence even still. Clown Car Race is super different. Instead of careening through a bendy track from a bird's eye perspective, Repack has us in a first-person view with more traditional steering. I never thought it was anything special before, so honestly, I think this one is a big improvement. It's way more fun now, creeping up on each ghost and using the pack pellets to ram through them as you physically tower over them. The first-person perspective helps that effect. I gotta say, I'm liking the changes to this one. The robot fight is also pretty different. What used to be a slogfest of gradually hitting a bunch of simple switches is now this conveyor belt of mayhem. Dodge everything that comes your way, look for a chrome ball, brave the glowing hot pipes, and land the blow. Hell yeah. If you ask me, it's a more engaging gameplay loop than it was in the original, so again, really love the changes to this one. And that leaves us with Talkman, the iconic final fight. They kind of nerfed it a lot. The original fight did have this big issue where Talkman could really easily send you flying off the stage if you didn't memorize all of the moves, and it was always at the very end too, so it's like you fight all the way through just to get sent flying every time until you dedicate all the moves to memory. It was a pretty solid and challenging fight, but the way it goes this way at the end every time, it really soured it for me. This version overhauls the fight entirely. You no longer have to dodge the slams, to pick up the dots, to chuck them at them, and dodge the shockwave bounces, hit all the switches, go up, and land the blow. This now all plays out with brand new attacks. And sure, it does fix that old issue of getting knocked out way too easily, but it now feels a little bit too easy to be a big final showdown. Visually, it is all very cool, and they do add some new moments to help make it all feel larger than life, but I don't know, I think I would have preferred something that played a little bit more like a final boss instead of this comfy cushion fight that acts all epic once you're done. You know, it's not as frustrating anymore, but I think it's now just kind of okay. Okay, so after the fight, there is something new that's pretty different, and it's a pretty cool surprise for fans of the original game, so I'm gonna give you a spoiler stamp here. If you don't want to spoil the brand new surprise, you can skip here. But otherwise, what are you talking about? Alright, so remember when I said saving everybody was optional? If you don't save everybody, you'll get that standard ending. Talkman turns out to be a sad little ghost who's just upset that Pac-Man gets all the spotlight. Nobody cares about the ghosts. It's worded differently, but it's the exact same idea. Pac-Man, being a total sociopath, fails to sympathize and instead falls back on the age-old tradition of ghost murder. I always hated this ending. I don't know why they made Pac-Man a total jerk for no reason. Why can't you just be nice to the funny ghost? Look how sad he is. But wait, what if there was a better way? What if I do rescue everybody and then I beat the boss and, oh my god, the last scene plays out differently. Instead of killing him and eating him, Pac-Man forgives the ghost and accepts his apology. Yo, I did not expect them to change that sort of thing. I did not expect them to touch the story at all, but that's a cool freaking change right there. I always hated the original ending. It made Pac-Man seem like a total dick, but this is way more satisfying if you ask me, and making it a hidden ending too. That was a really cool move. Made returning to it for people like me just you get to find this extra thing that didn't used to be there. That is so freaking sick. There's also a pretty cool bonus item I never mentioned in my old video because it was really difficult to get in the original game. You had to rack up a total of 1 million points across all of the levels. I don't have footage of that because it's so freaking hard to do. I never bothered to really do it, but you would have got this universal key that could open every single door in the game. No fruit required. In this version, you instead get it at 765,000, which is way more doable, especially considering that the new slot machine is also pretty good at racking up extra points. Making this easier to get was a really good move, because if you got 1 million points already, that means you've already beat the game completely. You've done everything you could possibly do, so what's the point of it then? What what use could you possibly have for a master key if you don't need it anymore? Here I got it when I was pretty close to 100%, but not quite there yet, so instead of being this useless thing, it got to be this really helpful tool for making the cleanup more efficient. The new score you need is also a pretty deep Namco reference. 7650 is a reoccurring number in a lot of Namco games. It's usually the biggest score you can achieve by like doing one action. There's actually a subtle reference to this in the original game too, with Pac-Man's address, but since they got rid of that in this version, I guess they thought to sneak it back in a different spot. I thought that was pretty cool. So, overall, pretty solid freaking remake, I gotta say. Like, they fixed everything I took issue with in the original, so if you want to play a version of Pac-Man World that doesn't have all the frustrating bits, yeah, this is easily the best way you can currently do that. But since they got rid of that in this version, I guess they thought
you.